Hello and welcome to Global Expansion Ideas 2010, Session 6 on Global HR and Labor Management, and also the course conclusion. My name is Lucas Spies with Global Capiche, and let's begin. First, some introductory remarks. Please refer to Session 2 of this series, which addresses many of the effects of culture in a truly diverse atmosphere. A lot of that information will apply to the HR. Talk about expatriates and many other of the cultural implications on this. This course, this presentation will focus more on the nuts and bolts of employment in HR in the operating environment. We'll get into that. Second, stereotyping is necessary to organize information in our brains to keep us efficient in our thinking, especially when we need to style switch. So when we talk about stereotyping, that's what we mean. Third, this presentation is clearly a brief presentation of some of the issues relating to HR and will not fully encompass the whole theme. So 1, where do we recruit from? We touched briefly on this in one of the previous presentations, but I put together a diagram that depicts this a little bit better than how I explained it before. So I just wanted to show this real quick. You have two different topics here. One is assignment and the other is hiring location. Okay, on the X and Y axes. You have international, domestic at the hiring location, international, domestic at the assignment location. When you hire domestically for a domestic assignment, it's a domestic company. When you hire internationally for a domestic assignment, you're a diverse company. When you hire domestically for an international assignment, you're an international company. And when you hire internationally for an international assignment, you're a global company. So that's what I was referring to before. More like a free movement of people throughout the company to where they best seem fit. And Jack Welch touches upon this in his book, Winning, where he talks about how the next leader of GE will have experience in all these different cultures and all the different markets that they operate in. So let's continue. Operating environment. So what we're going to talk about are a few issues that will drastically impact how your business operates and how your employees relate with the firm in foreign cultures, foreign countries. And these are the areas that we're going to discuss. The political structure, the governmental structure, the economic situation, the legal system, and the employment structure. The political structure. Here are some questions that you need to answer when you're considering your foreign market entrance. Where is the country in its political process? Who is currently leading the country and how did it get that way? In other words, what's the background information for the political system as it currently is? How stable is the system? What are the responsibilities of the state and are they being fulfilled? What bureaucratic obstacles are necessary to operate locally? What are the obligations to the government, for example, taxes, etc.? The governmental structure. The governmental structure will differ from state to state. By state I don't mean Illinois, Wisconsin. By state I mean the nation state of where you're entering. What you need to consider is what is the underlying structure of that government? In other words, how does this government work? There's dispersion of powers between the national and sub-national levels, or at least in most places there is. So you have here a unitary structure, which is a centralized government at the national level. Subnational governments implement decisions of the central government. So the subnational governments, or local governments, will operate and put into place the decisions of the central government so that everything will function that way. Decentralized unitary systems are similar in that they're unitary systems, but they're for larger geographic countries where they would need to have a little bit more power to operate without constantly relying on the central government, you know, as a go-between. So it's the same idea, but on a larger scale. In a confederal government, independent states devote power to the central government. I put here like European Union policies. What I mean by this is that to be part of the European Union, it's usually a requirement that you have to give up your currency. So francs or Deutschmarks, or these currencies had to be forfeited, and the monetary policies also forfeited to the European Union. And then the European Union implements its own monetary policies that will govern over that. So they're devoting their power to that central government. And that also goes along other areas, but I'm not going to get into the details of the European Union. There are many, many implications in doing business in Europe with respect to what the laws for the European Union are and how states are required to use those laws. But that's another course. The economic situation of the country that you're entering. What is the fiscal policy? What is the spending policy of the government? How are they investing in their economy? The central monetary agency, whatever governs their monetary policy, it's a central bank or what have you. What are the global economic pressures upon that agency? Is the global market saying that the currency is undervalued or overvalued? In the case of the financial crisis, the Asian financial crisis in '97, they were saying that the Thai baht was overvalued. We touched on that earlier. Where is the country in terms of its overall development? A couple ideas I put here are disparities in income and Social Security. Of course, there are many other aspects of this. A large portion of this course we've been talking about emerging markets. So these BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, they are developing countries. They could be classified as underdeveloped markets. So are you entering an emerging market, an underdeveloped market? Are you entering an industrialized economy? For example, Switzerland, France, United States. Is it a country that's severely underdeveloped? For example, is it a country in Africa? And that's a whole other other area to talk about with respect to Africa. You know, they have all different kinds. Every region will have its problems that it has to work out and its issues that it has to work out. Africa has obviously poverty that's pretty much unrivaled anywhere in the world. So, what implications does that have on your business? They have high AIDS rates and things of that nature. So you need to consider that if you're entering into one of those economies. It's the economic condition.